Performance is a trap. And in a world that expects us to always be doing, going, being busy, being productive, being still can feel revolutionary. And so if you're tired of performing for other people or trying to meet the needs and expectations of other people, here's how stillness can be your superpower. Hey there, I'm Kathleen. And if you're new to my channel, here we talk about lifestyle, entrepreneurship, and faith. And this video is actually part of a series that I'm calling The 8 Keys to a Soft Life. So if you've missed any of the other videos, make sure that you check those out. This video is also the second part of how to break free from the performance trap, which is something that I feel strongly about because right now so much feels performative, especially online. And, if you're used to always performing or always doing, you might not know how to just be, how to exist as you are. So let's talk about it. Before we dive in, earlier this year, I hosted a webinar called How to Break Free from the Performance Trap and Choose Peace During Life and Career Transitions Without Compromising Your Integrity. Now, I had originally planned to host the webinar again, but instead, I decided to explore other ways to expand on the topic. And that led to a video, which is the first part of this conversation, where I broke down the three biggest shifts that helped me choose peace over performance and how you can do the same. So today's video, it picks up from that and it shows how those shifts actually apply to living a soft life. Now, the thing is that being still can be hard because, like I said, we live in a world where we're used to always being on the go, on the move, being busy, being productive. And a lot of us were taught from an early age to put other people first. And without realizing it, we were actually taught to perform for everything, to perform for love, to perform for work, for acceptance. And with expectations come responsibility. So, we strive for greatness and for excellence and for recognition because essentially we were taught that only after we perform, that's when we feel like we're enough, or that's when we feel like we are worthy, or that's when we'll be loved. But what happens when the goalpost moves? What happens when people change their expectations? What happens when we stop performing? That's when, we might disappoint people. But that's okay because disappointment is really just a feeling, and we are not responsible for managing other people's feelings. We can only manage our own feelings. Now, I want to make this practical for you. So let's put this into practice. Think of an area in your life where you might be performing for something, whether that be in relationships or at work or wherever. And ask yourself, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for someone else's approval? Now, if you're doing this for you, totally fine. But if you're performing for someone else's approval, ask yourself why. Like I said, being still can be hard and it takes practice. So practice small moments of stillness. Take 3 minutes a day, set a timer, and just be. No phone, no work, nothing. Just be still. And then another thing to do is to set and enforce clear boundaries. Now, this will probably be the most challenging, but recognize where other people's expectations don't serve you and let them go. It's going to take some practice to be okay with disappointing other people because, like I said, a lot of us were taught from an early age to put other people and their feelings first. But this is an opportunity for you to put yourself first. I've shared before in other videos why I decided not to return to corporate after losing my job. And essentially, it was because even though I met the expectations of the job itself and I did my job well, I didn't meet the personal expectations of some of the people on the team. And I realized there were some people who were committed to misunderstanding me no matter what I did, simply because they didn't like me. And I felt like I didn't have anything to prove. I knew I did a good job and I did it well. And really, at this specific job, I knew early on that I probably would not be promoted at the company. And I was okay with that. And it's because I saw who got promoted and whose voices were amplified. And it was really the people who were loud, often wrong, but loud. And I think that's true of many corporate environments. The loudest person, the loudest people, even if they're not offering value or actually saying anything, but because they're loud, their voices get amplified. And for me, I was okay with not being promoted at that company because I knew I have options. Eventually, I knew I would work for myself. And I also knew that if I wanted to make more money in a corporate job before going into work for myself, that I could go to another company and still make more money. And I also knew that if it's about money, there are other ways to make money beyond just your 9 to 5. before you go into business. But like I said, ultimately my goal was to work for myself. I wasn't climbing a corporate ladder. I wasn't really like going after a promotion. So the idea that I probably would never be promoted at that company, I was okay with that. But in environments like that, where the loudest voices get amplified, there is an unspoken expectation for everybody to hustle and to want to climb the corporate ladder and to cater to leadership. Because again, the idea is that you want to climb the corporate ladder, so you should be hustling and you should be catering to leadership. And I remember we were in a meeting and I said something like, I work to live, which is true. I do work to live. I don't live to work. And you would have thought that I said something revolutionary or controversial or provocative. Now, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't know. But some people messaged me afterwards. It was a virtual meeting. Some people messaged me afterwards and were like, wow, I've never heard anyone say that they work to live. And I'm like, this isn't revolutionary, but for some people it is. And like I said, especially in environments like that one where there was an expectation to hustle, and I was literally saying, like, nah, I'm not going to hustle. It like ruffled people, it ruffled feathers. It like, some people didn't like that. And that's probably when I got a target put on my back now that I think about it. But I digress. The point is that I broke free from the performance trap. Now, even though while I was at that job, I wasn't yet living a soft life, I did break free from the performance trap. And that's how I reclaimed my energy and my presence and my power. Because, I wasn't measuring my worth or my work or anything about me against someone else's expectations or someone else's standards. I think some people were trying to change like my philosophy, I guess, about work and how I work to live. I do think there were some people who wanted me to change and live to work, and I rejected that. That's an example of enforcing your boundaries. Like my work was done and it was done well, but I wasn't going to hustle and stress myself out and burn out for this job. I just wasn't. And some people didn't like that. And that's the thing. Sometimes, when you break free from that performance trap, some people are not going to understand it. And a lot of people don't like what they just don't understand. But that's not your problem. And really, I realize now that having, broken free from the performance trap, that was the start of me moving towards living a softer life. Even though I didn't see it then, even though at the time it was very hard and I was still living a hard life then, but that was the start of living a softer life. And so I encourage you to stop performing, stop doing things for attention or for external validation because you are enough as you are. Just be, just be yourself, be who you are, move in the direction of the things that you want, take action towards that, and you can have the soft life. You don't have to perform for a softer life. You do have to break free from that performance trap. And in breaking free, just know you're going to ruffle some feathers. Some people aren't going to like you, but that's really none of your business. As I actually wrote a Substack post about how I move at my own pace in my life and in my business, and it's free to read. So if you're interested in that, I will link that in the description. And if you're new here, make sure that you subscribe because, like I said, this video is part of the series, The 8 Keys to a Soft Life. There are a few more videos coming, so you want to be subscribed so you know when those new videos drop. And I also have a free guide that can help you assess where you are in your transition journey because remember, stepping into a soft life is a transition. And so this guide will help assess where you are and give you 5 questions to reflect on before making a shift. And it can be applied to any type of transition, not just stepping into a soft life. So go ahead and check that out. It's free to download when you subscribe to my newsletter. And if you like content like this, make sure that you like this video. If you have any ideas or suggestions for videos that you'd like to see, go ahead and drop that in the comment. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.